It was Christmas Eve, and I was finally done with my shift at my new job. I recently changed jobs because this new place is close to my house. The commute from home is about 5 minutes with a car. On this particular day, there happened to be a huge blizzard outside. The weather predicted a couple feet of snow, with severe winds and below freezing temperatures. For some reason, my boss did not give me the day off. You know how it goes. There could have been like 1,000 feet of snow, and I would still have to show up to work. This was very bad for me, because my car broke down. Because of that, I walked to work, and so I knew I would have to walk home after my shift. Once I closed down the place, I opened the front door. All of a sudden, a breeze of cold winter air hit me. I shivered. It was dark outside, and snowing so bad, you can only see 2 feet in front of you. There was not a single person in sight, or so I thought. After a little while of walking, I could hear footsteps of someone walking in the snow to my right. These were no soft footsteps. I could hear the sound of stomping boots behind me. This scared me because I did not think anyone would be outside during a blizzard. Due to the intense snow, I was not able to see anyone. I was still a little skeptical, so I decided to go look around just to be sure. I could see a bunch of footsteps in the snow right next to where I was. At this point, I just thought it was some random person rushing home, so I didn't think much of it. Not even a minute later, I could hear footsteps coming towards me. I froze in my path and looked up, hoping to see someone. I did not see anyone, but I was starting to become more and more concerned. At first, I thought it was one of my friends messing with me. But then I realized, how would my friends know where I am? And why would they prank me during a blizzard? Things did not add up. I was starting to get creeped out, so I rushed home. As I was approaching my house, I started hearing footsteps again. But this time, they were coming from behind me. I immediately stopped and looked behind, only to see nothing but snow falling. I was terrified, so I ran to my house, locked the door, and ran upstairs. Around a half hour later, I heard a noise coming from one of the windows on the first floor. I walked downstairs, opened the blinds, and saw a man staring at me. I jumped back in fear and started yelling at the man to leave because I was going to call the cops. I never actually ended up calling the cops that night, but the man did leave, so I guess he got scared when he heard me say that I was going to call the police. One thing is for sure, I was clearly getting followed on my way home from work, and I still don't know the guy's intentions for following me. This story took place mid-December, during my hike in the Wyoming mountain range. I am an avid hiker, and I usually always tend to go hiking during the colder season. I don't know exactly why, but I seem to enjoy the cold more than the warm. Not only that, I love hiking in the Wyoming mountain range because of the beautiful scenery all year round. The area is huge, with lots of trails for beginners and experts. On this particular day, the Weather Channel was predicting around 12 feet of snow in the area where I planned to hike. I knew from experience that the weather always changes when hiking in the mountains, so I decided to go anyway. Looking back on it now, this was a very dumb idea. Anyways, after packing up all of my supplies, I decided to head out on the hike. In the beginning, everything seemed normal. The snow was minimal and I was enjoying the hike. After a little while, the snow started picking up to the point where it was almost impossible to see in front of you. I knew this would be a big problem, as I could be completely covered in snow if I was not careful. So I decided to start on my way back and try to make it before the big storm. I realized I made a big mistake of hiking, but there was nothing I could do now. Not only that, the sun was starting to set, and it would eventually get dark soon. In about 20 minutes, it got completely dark, so I flicked on my flashlight, but it wasn't doing much help. It was literally impossible to see. The only idea I could think of is to try and find a cabin and ask if I could spend the night with them. As I was hiking through the deep snow, barely able to see anything, a small light illuminated in front of me. I was not sure what the light was, but I decided to follow it. After a couple of seconds, I realized the light was the porch light of a small cabin located in the mountains. I was so happy to have found shelter. As I reached the house, I knocked on the front door, hoping somebody was inside. Luckily, an older woman opened the door. I was wondering if I could spend the night since I got lost hiking, I asked kindly. Yeah, sure, come in. The weather is horrible outside. I walked inside and was excited to feel the warm air. I was freezing cold from hiking in that snowstorm. I wanted to try and spark some small talk with her so things won't get awkward, but she made it apparent that she did not want to talk and that she was tired. I did not want to bother her, so I just nodded in agreement. She pointed me to the couch where I was going to sleep for the night. She then went towards the back of the cabin and into a room and closed the door. I was a little confused as to why she was acting so weird all of a sudden, but I was grateful that she was able to help me. Eventually, I fell asleep. I woke up sometime in the middle of the night. I was not sure what woke me up, but I made sure to scan my surroundings. I couldn't see anything, as it was very dark in the cabin. I slowly reached for my bag and took out the flashlight that I had from earlier. I shined it around the room and froze when the light illuminated the same woman standing in the corner of the room staring right at me. "What are you doing?" I screamed. There was no answer, so I started to quickly pack up all of my supplies in case I had to leave. I asked one more time, "Are you okay?" Again, no answer. I'ma just leave, okay?" I said shakily. This time, she responded with, "No, you're not." I figured something must be wrong with her, so I sprinted out the front door and into the dark snowstorm night. Once I had ran far enough, I began to look for the trail. I had my flashlight, but that didn't help in the dark night. My only option was to set the emergency tent and wait till the morning. Luckily, I had enough light to set up the tent and have shelter for the night. In the morning, I was able to make my way out of the trail and reach my house. I vowed to never hike during a snowstorm again. Also, I still don't know the woman's real intentions for staring at me at night. This all happened on a Friday, 2 days before Christmas. The weather was predicting a massive snowstorm, which would dump upwards of 8 feet of snow. This is the first time we would get an insane amount of snow where I live. I live in the northern part of New York, so this much snow was new to me. My parents would also be out of state for that weekend, so I was on my own. At the time, I was 18, so I was happy to just get some alone time for a couple of days. Before the start of the storm, I made sure to go to the grocery store to buy a bunch of food in case I got stuck in the house. After arriving back home, I put on a Christmas movie and just sat down watching. While I was watching TV, I must have fallen asleep because I woke up around 3 a.m. The TV was still on. I sat up and walked over to the window to see how much snow was outside. I looked outside and saw the giant snow piles. It must have been around 4 feet tall by now. This was a good sign since I wanted a lot of snow. As I looked towards the street in front of my house, I saw the silhouette of a person standing there. I couldn't make out if he was looking in my direction. I was a little skeptical and confused. Why would somebody be outside my house? Why would somebody be out around 3 a.m.? Those were all questions that were running through my head. Since I wasn't sure, I decided to try and go back to sleep. I figured the person standing outside had nothing to do with me. Once in my bed, I kept on having the urge to look out my window again and see if the person was still standing there. I opened the blinds and looked outside. This time, the person was still there, but they were closer. Now I could make out their facial features. I saw that it was a man wearing all black. He was also wearing a ski mask, so you could only see his eyes. I was not sure what he was trying to do, but now he was trespassing on my property. I didn't like that, but I also didn't want to go outside and confront him. This is because I was not sure why a strange man was outside during a snowstorm in front of my house. I texted all my friends to make sure no one was playing a prank on me. After a couple of minutes, I got replies from all of them, saying none of them are outside. Now I knew I had to do something. As I was about to open the window, he sprinted towards the front door. He was gone. I looked straight down, and I saw him standing right in front of my door. That's exactly when the doorbell rang. I walked downstairs and went to try and peek through the peephole. There he was, just standing in front of the door. I screamed at him to leave, as I was gonna call the police. This somehow worked, as the man left and walked back towards the street. After I watched him walk out of sight, I went back upstairs and finally went to sleep. About an hour later, I was woken up by the doorbell again. I knew it must have been the same person. I walked downstairs and looked through the peephole. That's when I was met by a person's eyeball staring right back at me. I jumped back in fear. I ran over to the living room window and opened the blinds looking outside. It was the same man, dressed in all black. I was scared that he might try and break into the house, so I ended up calling the police. I then walked to the kitchen and grabbed the largest knife in case he broke in. Luckily, the police arrived in a matter of 10 minutes, and they were able to search all around my house. Of course, the man was gone by now. The police never ended up catching the man, but he also never showed up to my house again.